Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Bhagavatam Class ki Jai. Thank you, sir. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much for attending, tuning in to the program. It is our great honor and privilege to be here. Thank you, Ananda Bihari Prabhu, for your wonderful service daily, being here, hosting, making sure everyone's here. We also have a few devotees here in the temple room. So, and Adi Purushvu is also here, but he's manifested at the moment.
It was very brief, Jai Nitai Prabhu. I think I saw a Keshwar. Who else is there?
Hello. Raj Lakshmi Devi is here, Adi Purushvu, and Raj Lakshmi. Ujjalanti is also here. So like that.
Hare Krishna.
Raj's sister.
Ujjalanti's sister, Raj Lakshmi is here. Okay, so we'll be
The full house.
it's a full house.
Yeah, the whole family's
Oh,
here.
and sorry, we also have Nandini Radhika and Balakrishna Prabhu. They're here with their lordships. So
Jai.
And the Lordship.
and their lordships, of course.
Jai.
In second place. Okay, so we'll be reading this morning from the 10th canto, if you want to engage your devices. 10th canto, chapter 87. We're reading text 42, so we'll start with the invocation. Everyone can please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'll just read the Sanskrit and the word for word, and then Bhava Bhakti will read the translation and purport. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idyetad Brahmana Putra Ashutyatmana Shashyanam Sanandanam Machanurachu Siddhagyantvatmano Gatim. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Lord, Sri Narayan Rishi said, Iti, thus, Itat, this, Ramanaha of Rama, Putraha, the sons, Ashrutya,
having
heard,
heard,
Atma,
Atma,
about the self,
about the self,
Anushashanam,
Anushanam,
instruction,
instruction,
Sanandanam,
Sanandanam,
the sage Sanandana,
the sage Sanandana,
Ata,
Ata,
then,
the
Anarchu,
Anarchu,
they worshipped,
they worship,
Siddha,
Siddha,
perfectly satisfied,
perfectly satisfied,
Yatva,
Yatva,
understanding,
understanding,
Atmanaha,
Atmanaha,
their own,
their own,
Gatim,
Gatim,
ultimate destination.
ultimate destination.
Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, translation. The Supreme Lord Sri Narayan Rishi said, having heard these instructions about the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead, the sons of Brahma now understood their final destination. They felt, they felt perfectly satisfied and honored Sanandana with worship. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Atmanushashanam can be understood both as instructions given to benefit the Jiva souls and as instructions about the living entity's relationship with the foundation of all existence. Similarly, Atmanogatim means both the destination of the Jiva soul and the means of reaching the Supreme Soul. By hearing the 28 prayers of the personified Vedas, which comprise the elucidation of the Brahmopanishad, spoken at the beginning of this chapter, the sages assembled in Brahmaloka made great progress toward their goal of pure love of God.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Amen.
Om Gana Timidandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vidatu Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shra Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raguna Panditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Stavadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Vasute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishamana Sute Paramami Haripriye Mancha Kalpatarubhyasya Vipa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the verse again, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Ityetad Brahmana Putra Ashrut Yat Manushashanam Sanandanam Athanarchu Siddha Gyantwatmano Gatim. The Supreme Lord Sri Narayan Rishi said, having heard these instructions about the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead, the sons of Brahma, now having heard these instructions about the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead, the sons of Brahman now understood their final destination. They felt perfectly satisfied and honored Sanandana with their worship. So before we begin, we'd just like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas that you see fit to bestow your mercy upon us so that we can speak something relevant and bona fide. Only by the mercy of Vaishnavas is anything possible, so we're therefore seeking your blessings. Any Purush, seeking Vaishnava, Arjuna Kuru, he's out there in cyberspace. So like that, we're seeking your blessings. Hare Krishna. So, even though I'm sitting here in the class most every day, hearing to a greater or lesser extent, when I read this verse, I was like, what's going on? I thought this was the prayers of the personified Vedas. And all of a sudden the prayers are finished. And I remember, especially from Krishna book, that this is the longest chapter in the Krishna book, out of all the chapters in Krishna book. And I was thinking that it was the same here, but actually it's because the purports for these first 28 verses are so long. So I wanted to just give a little bit of a background to bring us all up to speed at where we're at, because I doubt if any of us know exactly where we're at in the Bhagavatam, right? Even if you're reading it every day, it's so easy to get lost because often it's a conversation inside of a conversation about a conversation about a conversation that was inside of a conversation. And then there's Prabhupada's or Prabhupada's disciples' purports, and that takes you often to a whole nother destination. So it's real easy to lose track of where we're at. So this is chapter 87, and at the end of chapter 86, Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Parikshit about two very exalted devotees. Anyone remembers who those two exalted devotees were? Bahulashva and Shrutadev. So Bahulashva and Shrutadev. And at the end, he's explaining how after going to see them, that he spent time with them explaining transcendental or Vedic knowledge. And the word that was used in the verse there was sanmargam. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that this sanmargam, as in this purport today, can have several different meanings. One of which is that it's divine knowledge meant for our relationship with Krishna. But two other meanings are it's Vedic knowledge that is meant from an impersonal perspective. So this is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains. And he says that he's speaking in line with Sanatana Goswami, Sridhar Swami, and Lord Krishna. So that's what is stated there in the purport, how he's giving this explanation. So based on this, this opens up the 87th chapter where Parikshit Maharaj starts this chapter that we're currently in by asking Shukadeva Goswami a question. Does anyone remember the question?
What can we understand, since we have limited intelligence, transcendental subject matter of the Supreme Personality of God, who's unlimited, right? Wasn't that the question?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
His direct question was, how can the Vedas, how can they extol the glories of the Lord who is beyond words? That was the actual essence of the question. How can words basically, and how can the Vedas describe the glories of the Lord in words who's actually undescribable? You can't actually explain his glories. So the first thing that happens is Shukadeva Goswami, when he hears this question from Parikshit Maharaj, what do you think he says? He says, that's the stupidest question I ever heard. Why did you ask that? Why don't you just sit here until you die, right? Is that what he said? No. He said, awesome, amazing. Thank you for asking such a question. Because sadhus love to be asked questions, especially questions about the Lord, because then they get to speak about him. So Shukadeva Goswami goes on to say that actually this exact same question was asked by Narada Muni to Narayan Rishi. And remember, Narayan Rishi's name was mentioned here in this verse that we're reading today. So Narayan Rishi, from the famous Narayan Rishis, right? So Narayan Rishi was approached by Narada Muni, who asked him the same question. how can the Vedas extol the glories of the Lord when the Lord is beyond words? So Narayan Rishi said, you know what, Narada, this reminds me of another pastime. This is a pastime on Janaloka. Ages ago, where the sages of Janaloka were gathered together and having a conversation about the absolute truth. And one of them asked the exact same question that you just asked. So then he starts to narrate this pastime. So Sri Narayan Rishi is narrating to Narada about a conversation that happened where? On Janaloka. I'm glad I'm setting the scene. All you're like, we can't even follow what you're saying. So in Janaloka, there's another conversation happening amongst a group of sadhu sages, and they choose Sri Sanandana to be their representative and speak to them. So the verse today mentions both Sri Narayan Rishi and also Sanandana. So both of them are involved in this conversation because Shukadev Goswami is speaking to Parikshit Maharaj about a conversation between Narayan Rishi and Narada Muni, where Narayan Rishi is referring to a story of a conversation that happened on Janaloka with the sadhus, where Sri Sanandana, who is one of the four Kumaras, the leader of the four Kumaras, who he was relating an answer to the exact same question. So everyone's got that? You will be tested at the end, okay? So Jamuna Jai is dancing in ecstasy. So so this question, and I'll ask you again, what was the question?
How can
we
we-
this extol the glories of the Lord? Change the words.
That's not cheating. Prabhupada said if you want to remember, you have to remember one thing, and that's to write it down. And if you write it down, then you won't forget. So good student, yes, perfect. So first thing is that we see that gatherings of saintly souls and sadhus are always happening. From time immemorial, sadhus are coming together to discuss the topics of Krishna, of the absolute truth. Machchita magata prana bodhiyanta parasparam kathayanta shamamnicham tu shanti cha ramanti cha. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that the devotees derive great satisfaction and bliss from coming together to discuss the topics of him. So therefore, the sadhus are always coming together. So therefore, the most happening place you can be is at Bhagavatam class. The most happening place you can be is in the association of devotees who are talking about Krishna and extolling his glories. So like that. So that's the background. Now over to you.
Okay. So for me, one thing that stood out in terms of the verse, it says, having heard these instructions about the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead, the sons of Brahma now understood their final destination. And I was thinking, now understood their final destination from hearing. And if you remember, I think it was last week, class. So we were at 26 Second Avenue, Matchless Gifts. And it's nice to go there and just almost like meditate or just close your eyes and imagine the sounds and the young men and women, the hustle and the bustle that was occurring there. Like when they say that phrase, the ghosts of the past, but it doesn't have to be negative term, the ghosts of the past. I was thinking these young men and women that were there, they heard from Prabhupada and they understood their final destination. Just as these sages are hearing, this is everyone is hearing, we're hearing in the page of the Bhagavatam now, that from what they've just heard, they understood that. And you might look at it and think, oh, those people are, spaced out, rather than this. No, they had access to Srila Prabhupada, who knew the final destination. And he came there. And if you look, for example, there's many photos on the walls there, but there's a couple at Pumpkin Square Park. Prabhupada sitting there on the ground with that bongo drum, and he's surrounded. It's like We don't have a picture here, but we do have it in Matchless Gifts of the lotus flower, the whirl of the lotus flowers. And you've got Krishna, Radha and Krishna in the middle, and you have the petals, and it's like Prabhupada's in the center, and you have all those people around like petals. But if you look at the faces of the people that are around him that are standing up, they look intimidating, they look a bit angry, you know, they look a bit, they're definitely not stern. Can you imagine one or two of those women, the one's got a handbag like this, and she's standing like that? I don't know, this way. You know, some men are looking like, what is this? But then you look at the inner whirl of that lotus. Prabhupada's in the center, and you look at the inner, which are the devotees, the young men and women that have followed Prabhupada there. They look blissful. They look like, I actually don't care what people think of me. They look free. They look, even if they may not have realized the term yet, they look liberated, even though they may not have got it, but they were. Why? Because they were chanting the holy names. They were sitting at the lotus feet with pure devotee. And for that moment in that time, they were not of this world. So whether they realized it or not, they had achieved that final destination, all by the mercy of Prabhupada at the Lower East Side. So it's interesting also that here we've been hearing, as I said, about the personified Vedas glorifying the Supreme Lord. You know, it's the Vedas themselves. And in one sense, some people like to argue what is the conclusion of the Vedas, what's the purpose of the Vedas, but they themselves have concluded their own selves by saying it's the Supreme Lord. You know, so there's no argument on that front. And then you have fast forward so many thousands and thousands and thousands of years forward, we have Srila Prabhupada, who is the bona fide representative of the Vedas, of the Supreme Lord, also concluding the same thing, which is chant Hare Krishna and worship Krishna. And he's actually concluding that. And I was thinking, yeah, so it's like a reenactment of what we've just been reading in this chapter, taking place on the Lower East Side of the Bowery. That's exactly what I've done there.
Yeah, so in one sense, there's nothing new under the sun. The same questions have been asked before, and the same answers. If you're coming in parampara, then it's the same questions, same answers, just a different time. For the benefit of new spirit souls who are lost and confused in the material world, or who are looking for the ultimate answers. As Bhava Bhakti was saying, it's you know, Prabhupada was the messenger of the Vedas, and his name is Bhakti Vedanta. Anta means the end of knowledge. You know, Anta, Veda Anta means the end of knowledge, and the end of knowledge is Bhakti. It's devotional service, pure devotional service.
So in the Purport, it says, by hearing the 28 prayers of the personified Vedas, which comprise the elucidation of the Brahma Upanishad, spoken at the beginning of this chapter, the sages assembled in Brahma Loka made great progress towards their goal of pure love of God. And what stood out for me here was the importance of hearing. And it's such a powerful but like, easily overlooked aspect of learning. I mean, it's interesting, like Raj's sister pointing out, she's cheating because she's making notes. But that's such a powerful form of hearing, because you want to retain what you're hearing. No, I'm not pulling you up.
I was joking.
No, it's a sister thing. But it's true. And so many times, like when we're hearing, we should try to check ourselves like this, maybe during the day or even the week. Am I hearing with a view to respond? Like, I'm not actually hearing. First of all, I may be hearing because I'm waiting until she stops talking so I can speak. Or am I hearing again so I can speak? You know, there's no sense of, okay, what is it this person is actually saying? So it's actually very powerful. And we know that in this line. We know the importance of hearing. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 26, just a purport I pulled out a bit here, Prabhupada says, it is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing for realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya said that in this age, no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who have knowledge of the Supreme Lord. One is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps. One will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. And that just begins from hearing. And if you think going back like that in the not so distant past to match 22nd Avenue, those young men and women that were walking through the door, and the jumbo van could say, you know, when you're sitting in reception, you may be like, I don't know about that. I don't know who's coming in. I don't know. But it's interesting because whoever was coming in and Prabhupada was letting them come in and speaking to them, we now put them on the pedestal of guru. Our gurus are one of those people that we may have been like, I don't know about that, you know. And then other who we consider like spiritual uncles and aunts, as it were. And we glorify them. But at the time, we may have been like, that one's not going to hear anything, or let's not let him in, or he's a bit smelly, or he looks weird, or he's strung out. And there you go. That is the power of hearing from the bona fide spiritual, from the bona fide representative of the Lord. And in the Bhagavatam 9th canto, chapter 19, text 25, Prabhupada also says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says, Chaito Dapana Marjanam, the process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord washes away the dirty things accumulated in the core of the heart. So this is another byproduct, as it were, of hearing is we could do a check on ourselves. Am I making progress? Am I getting purified? You know, am I letting go of things that would have been, that would have been distracting me before or would consume me? And that is one very important test of, am I actually hearing? So I was thinking that this hearing process, you know, it's so important and it's like an art form in itself. Now, I know back in London in terms of when we're serving at the temple, and I was thinking, you know, how to fit in hearing from classes. So what I used to do is I used to specifically, like when I'm at home cooking for lunch or this, I'd make sure, okay, I'm going to put a class on. Now, it doesn't mean I'm always necessarily tuned in because I'm making sure I don't burn something or chop my hand off for this. But I used to try to listen to that one class, maybe at least for that week. And I realized it's like, if you can't, to some of my, in terms of the ladies in my mentee group, they'll be like, I don't have time to hear. I said, yeah. So then you don't do it at all because you think, I don't have time to hear. So I said, try to fit it in a practical way. And I said, do that. Just listen to that one class for at least that week. And it was incredible because then things went in more that way because you're repeatedly hearing, especially the same thing, as opposed to writing it up and saying, well, I don't have time because I work and I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So yeah, the importance of hearing and somehow tricking the mind almost in adding it into our lives. But Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, didn't he note when he first met Prabhupada? You remember what he said about Prabhupada? He likes to hear. He likes to hear. And he clocked that and he noticed that. And it's interesting that this simple act of Prabhupada all those years ago, when he'd heard from his guru, it basically unfolded into, like, where he took the instruction of what he heard into his heart, print books, preaching the Western world. It basically created this whole spiritual revolution, which again started right here in the Lower East Side, just from that simple act of hearing.
So, so in conclusion, we mentioned this conversation within a conversation. So Sri Sanandana, who is the leader of the four Kumaras, he's conveying this other story. He's conveying another story. So where did we leave off in the stories, inside the stories? Anyone remembers? Where does Sri Sanandana come into it?
He's speaking to the sages of Janaloka.
Yes, so Sri Sananda is speaking to the sages in Janaloka, and he says to the sages, oh, this question reminds me of another conversation that happened, or he says another incident. And he begins to explain of an incident. He said, when the Lord is in his deep slumber at the end of a day of Lord Brahma, because there's like Lord Brahma goes to sleep, or at the end of a complete annihilation, and the Lord is asleep. When he's woken up by the personified Vedas, who basically are like bards to a king. They sing the glories of the Lord. So Sri Sanandana says, your question reminds me of this and can be answered by me telling you this pastime. So that pastime is where the Lord is awakened to the glory, to his glories being sung by the personified Vedas. And so then what happens is Sri Sanandana, which is also beautiful. You can see that the Lord doesn't get woken up by an alarm bell, you know, or hoping that his phone by the fifth or sixth. I don't know. I won't ask you guys how many snooze times you hit this morning, but you know, it's like he doesn't hit the snooze. He's got the personified Vedas who are chanting mantras, glorifying him, and he's like, oh, wakes up like that. So we could probably also set our phones so we wake up hearing like the Bhagavad Gita.
You
So
did that, maybe we could wake each other up.
yeah.
But I never did it.
Quite like, yeah, it's true. That's a good point. We could actually glorify the devotees. Please wake up, dear devotee. You are so expert at your service every day. So then Sanandana, he recites these prayers. And in the purport, there's a purport earlier on in these sections. So he's mentioning specifically that there are 28 major shrutis. And these they're major shrutis, there are many shrutis, but these 28 are major because these ones are the ones that specifically extol the glories of the Lord. And those 28 correlate directly to the 28 verses that we have literally just finished. So like that. So in this purport, it says, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the 28 verses of the prayers of the personified Vedas, text just for your reference, 14 through 41, 1-4 through 4-1. So it's just reversed, easy to remember like that, 14 to 41. Those verses that we've just literally completed, because we're on text 42, those verses represent the opinions of each of the 28 major shrutis. These chief Upanishads and other shrutis concern themselves with various approaches to the absolute truth. And among them, those shrutis are supreme, which emphasize pure, unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what we have, what we've just heard, these 28 verses. So today's verse again, just want to read that again to put this in. And so now after I read this verse again, you should have a better picture of what's being said. If not, then I've definitely failed in my goal today. The Supreme Lord, Sri Narayan Rishi, you remember Narayan Rishi being spoken about now? Said, so Narayan Rishi is speaking here, and he's also the Supreme Lord. Yes. Nara and Narayan is, we relate them predominantly to who? Nara and Narayan are related to Arjuna and Krishna, Nara and Narayan. But Narayan Rishi is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Having heard these instructions about the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead, the sons of Brahma, and who are the sons of Brahma? The four Kumars, exactly, now understood their final destination. They felt perfectly satisfied, right? Machita Magata Prana, and honored Sanandana. And remember, we spoke about Sanandana? He was the representative chosen by the sages where? In Jataloka. So they worship Sanandana after this because he helped them to feel satisfied by relaying this story of how the Lord was woken up by the personified Vedas. Okay, so Hare Krishna. So that is, oh, and last thing I wanted to say is that, yes, so this is how we make spiritual progress. And all of you online are also like great sages because you have some taste for hearing and chanting. That's why you decide to get out of bed and turn on your screen or go for a walk, as Madam Gopal is doing. And you hear, or Bhima is here every day almost. Yeah, I think he's here today. He's out dealing with his horses, doing his farm chores, but he's hearing. And you can tell he's hearing because he often turns on his camera at the end and asks a question very clearly related, Adi Purushpu is walking around the room right now, but he's hearing, he can hardly stay awake, but he is hearing. Is that, he stitches, he can stitch himself to the spiritual world, but he's hearing, and that he's hearing because as soon as there's a pause, he's always got a comment. So like that. So all of you are great sages and sadhus, and you're on the call today, and you're on the call because you want to be, not because you have to be. And I was thinking of this yesterday, that actually when I was in the temple as a brahmachari, and those who might have been there, it's like you came to Bhagavatam class, not necessarily because you wanted to, but because you had to, because if you didn't, you were going to get into trouble. So, which was good for me because I also voluntarily moved into the ashram. No one abducted me and stuck me in there, like put me in prison. But because you're forced to do things sometimes in the beginning, it helps to create a powerful habit and generates the opportunity to develop, as the Bhagavatam says, an affinity for hearing. So therefore, some affinity for hearing has been, but many of the devotees online and in the room haven't been forced to do that in any way. You are choosing daily to come here, and that is super significant because you don't have to. There are a million other things you could be doing. You're walking, you're doing your horses, you're doing whatever. You don't have to be hearing, but as Bhava Bhakti was explaining, you're choosing to hear, and not only choosing to hear, but choosing to hear in the sangam, in the association of devotees. And because of that, this online Bhagavatam group has become so closely knit and become like good friends. It's like a sheltered place to go. So I just want to congratulate all the devotees who are taking their valuable time. It's described that time is much more valuable than money, because once you spend a second, you can never get it back. Whereas any money spent, you can always figure out a way to get it back. So you're choosing to spend your valuable time being here. So I would just like to congratulate all of you. Hare Krishna.
One thing I read,
And there is a question, hand raised on my house.
can you hear us okay? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
One thing we heard Prabhupada say recently, he was saying how grateful he was that we are reading his books. And when I'm reading Bhagavatam in the evening, I always have Prabhupada's picture there and thinking that he's pleased. Maybe you said you sometimes people go to class because you have to, otherwise you can't stay in the temple, or you're going there because you have an attraction to hearing. It's as if you don't have an attraction to hearing. If you're not engaged in devotional service, then the attraction won't be there. But coming to the class to please Prabhupada, or coming to the class as an offering to Krishna, is an interesting motivation. That is actually we're pleasing somebody by doing it, and not because I'm so drawn to this subject matter because we're conditioned like jaundice, but because Prabhupada says, thank you so much for reading these books. And it's his gift to us. And when somebody gives you a gift, if you accept it, they feel pleased. And for his pleasure, imagine that, pleasing somebody, that somebody's pleased that we're coming, that Krishna's pleased that we're coming.
Beautiful. Lovely. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Just something on the subject.
Someone had a hand raised online, and then I think they turned it off. Anyone else? Anything?
I think that was me.
Oh.
I just wonderful class. Jai Nitai and Bhava Bhakti. A clarification. So Narayan Rishi, the Supreme Lord, how does that work? Is that something like Krishna Balaram or Radha Muralidhar? How many personalities are in Narayan Rishi? Is it like Jai Nitai and Bhava Bhakti? They're separate, but they're one at the same time?
Maybe if we stick to Narayan Rishi, that might be the better topic. So Sri Narayan Rishi is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So he's non-different from the Supreme Lord and considered in that way. So, and he's, as far as I'm aware, still also present in the Himalayas on this planet, performing pastimes. And yeah, in the later chapters of the Bhagavatam, which we're heading to the 11th canto pretty soon. So there's also discussion there specifically around the pastimes of Narayan Rishi. So we'll get to hear more of that. And you are like Parikshit Maharaj, because you hear just a hint of it and you start asking more questions. Please shoot, Dave. Tell us more.
Yeah.
More. So you're pleasing Prabhupada by asking such questions. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jai Nitai Prabhu. Narottam Nitai Prabhu is raising his hand.
Looks like he's lifting Govardhan.
Well, not me. It's Krishna background. No. It's. I really appreciate the class. I kind of look at going to the temple because, like, sometimes the deities, like, over time may change slightly the way they look. Or you can see it through the pictures and stuff by, like, how the deities are reciprocating by how the devotees are serving them and stuff. But, like, my thing is, like, I really appreciate what you said about the coming because we want to, because I've been trying to distribute, but I got 2 books out this morning, but like just the effort of that we put in to try to please Krishna, I just knowing that Krishna is pleased by that just is more encouraging to continue to put in the effort. And yeah, I really like the story about Narayan Rishi. But also I think also there's another one in the Bhagavatam about is it no, not Dhruva Maharaj, like, or something like that, or I forget about it. I think it's Dhruva Maharaj where he sees his, like, old pastimes and he sees a mountain covered with a lot of, like, skeletons of many people, and he's and I think Krishna tells him that those are all the times that in many lifetimes that you did tapasya in order to really come to where you are today. So, like, I mean, it's just amazing that Krishna knows all of our lifetimes and all different, everything, and we're just required to focus on this one lifetime and perfect it, and not even one lifetime, just one moment and moment by moment. So I just think it's really beautiful. That's why I had to share. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Yes. I'm not so familiar with that pastime. I don't know if anyone else is I haven't heard that myself specifically, but might be there in some of the Puranas, which is an interesting thing. We were at Matches Gifts the other day, and this young man came in, very enthusiastic, just kind of almost bowled in the door. We were a little bit like, okay, what's going on? He unzipped his bag. He was wearing shorts and a kind of t-shirt, and he whipped out his bag. He whipped out this dhoti, blue see-through kind of dhoti, and just started trying to put it on, and he was really struggling. I was like, would you like some help? And he's like, no, it's my first time coming to the temple, and I thought I should wear a dhoti. He's trying to put it on. And I was like, it's okay, relax. So around here, you don't need to do that. So just put it back in the bag. And it turns out he's like from England, and he's like 16-year-old young man. And he got Prabhupada's books on the street from someone. He saw like a Harinam party, got a book, started reading it. He's read the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita. Then he started searching out, and then he's found all the different Puranas, read the version of the Mahabharata, the Harivamsa. and as you're talking to him, you can realize he's just like this super intellectual person who's just like, and he's like repeating loads of stuff that he's read, so he's retaining it. But anyway, had an interesting conversation, but just on this point, he was sharing like different things from different books. So there are many different pastimes and things, or we hear insights at different times from from Prabhupada in his purports where he says in this Purana, it says like this, or it's explained in different places. So I don't know, I haven't heard that last time, but it may be there somewhere. Anyone else has any other reflections? Anyone here in the room? Ladies, anything?
When
Or
you
should we-
say the sages of Janaloka, is it the four Kumaras? Are they equivalent to each other?
So your question was, when we said the sages of Janaloka, is that equivalent to the four Kumars?
Yeah, were they the four?
They were definitely there, and they're the sons of Brahma, as mentioned in the verse, because they're manifested. But it seems there were other sages there present, and Janaloka is the place where the kind of sadhus all hang out. The most exalted siddhas, they hang out there. So I think we're going to have darshan now, so everyone can follow Nanda Bihari Prabhu's guidance.
Thank you. Dear devotees, please turn on your cameras if you can. Thank you, Venumaduri. Thank you, Neha. Anandi. Beautiful. Wow. Like blossom and flowers. William, super soul. Amrita Kishore even. Wow. Madame Gopal. Cool.
Govindam Hari Krishna. Bhagavatam Samasitam Sura Sundaram Koti Kamaniya Ishato Hari Krishna Govinda Hari Krishna Sakayam Priya Priti Manti Sayantika Vikalyanti Iram Jaganti Anaja Chimaya Sadhu Vada Vikrava Yasya Govinda Hari Krishna Govinda Hari Krishna Govinda Hari Krishna Govinda Hari Krishna Namaham Rajami Govinda Hari Krishna Namaham Rajami Govinda Hari Krishna Namaham Rajami. Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Shishira Fear of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can obtain pure devotions. I bow down to his lotus feet without all reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified, originating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to the lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He purified Arjuna, who builds my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, and by him ignorance is destroyed. Many scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy. The friend of the poor, the Lord and master of the low feet. Oh, Nath, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame follow the free world. Shelter of the lotus feet. Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you, Jai Nitai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, welcome to the Afterglow. Surab Prabhu, thank you for sharing that you planted your Tulsi plant yesterday. How is she doing?
Doing great. It's a pleasure to water every day, and it's amazing. All these years, I've heard about Tulsi Mata, but the Bhagavatam class and all of you and Sri Achyuta Gopi's class, finally in front of my home, our home. So it's a blessing, and I think I'm understanding the significance at a whole different level. And again, have known for so many years, but actually starting to know and appreciate and value and respect at a whole different level.
Great, Surab Prabhu, thank you. That is very inspiring. Devotional service is very purifying and edifying and inspiring process. You take to it, you feel the difference. You feel you're in a different level all of a sudden. But as soon as you step out, you're right where you started. At least that's what happens to me. You know. Would anyone like to share? Madam Gopal Prabhu, would you like to speak?
I like to hear the different devotees' reflections. It'd be nice.
Okay, let's see. Anandi. I should have asked you to start unmuting yourself sooner. Anandi, let's see. If we ask you to unmute every day, maybe you'll master it. Let's see. Anandi. Okay, Anandi, take your time. Adipusha Prabhu will
Hare
speak.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Adipusha Prabhu.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we always pray to Srila Prabhupada what he might want us to say. And what do we have to share except what we've heard from Prabhupada? And it's always valuable to hear these verses. There's one verse that says, your occupation, your work, the activity that you're involved in is useless if it does not provoke an attraction to hearing the messages of Vasudeva. So it's connected to what we do. And if we're trying to swim against the current of the world, swimming up a river, we have to have motivation and inspiration and could be convinced that this is important. So when we're trying to go in devotional service, we realize if I don't hear, Vaisheshika Prabhu says, if we don't hear sufficiently from scripture, then we begin to imagine injustices. We're dissatisfied. And the verse today was about being satisfied because you know where this is going. There was that one heroin addict girl who came to the temple and she was there and Dhanara Maharaj was preaching to her. Wonderful, elaborate, intense philosophical presentation. And at one point, the girl said, "What's the point?" Very, raw. What's the point? And then Mars explaining, well, Krishna, the point is that Krishna loves you. And that when we discover that, it just changes everything about how we look at the world and what we want to do, and how all of a sudden things make sense. What we listened to last night, the wisdom of the sages, it was saying, otherwise it's a big dark creation with a bunch of dust and rocks and pointless. No meaning, no love. Anyway, talking too much. Oh, Lord, Srila Prabhupada, Hare Krishna. That's what we have.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, without love, there's no point. Anandi.
Well, it's just something that I experienced. When I lived in the ashram with my guru, we'd have meditation and they'd ask people to share, and people would say all these exotic things. Oh, I saw Lakshmi, I saw this goddess, that god, etc. And I never saw anything. And finally, when my guru left his body, I realized I got everything because there are no words to describe that state when you experience consciousness and God. And I thought, how lucky am I experience that state, even if for a moment? How lucky am I that I experienced the love of the Guru, never to be forgotten in any lifetime? That's all. There are no words to describe God, Krishna. There are just no words.
Thank you, Anandi. I remember my wife once woke up and said, yeah, I was in Vrindavan in my dream. I saw Prabhupada, I saw my guru in my dream. I was like, how? Why? Why can't I have that? I always see some wild stuff from my past, or that I went to my old job, or that somebody's chasing me, or I'm chasing somebody. And she always sees Vrindavan and, devotees in her dreams. Ananda, you're very sincere, very pure. Thank you for sharing that. We hope that rubs on us a little bit. Anandi's sincerity. Madango Paul Prabhu, we briefly saw you. Okay, he got it. He got in his car. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Is Narayan Rishi, is that one person or two personalities? Madango Paul Prabhu.
Narayan Rishi. Okay. Good question.
Sorry.
No, it's a good question. So Narayan Rishi is a profound and unique dual incarnation of the Lord in the Vedic tradition. And he appears as two divine sages, Nara and Narayan. Now, the eternal associate of the Lord is Nara. Nara just means human. And the Lord himself is Narayan. Now, what is the identity? So Narayan, of course, is
Madango Paul Prabhu, it's a little distorted.
often, basically this Vishnu. Nara is maybe my signal because I'm a little far out. Is it still distorted?
It's better
Okay.
now. It's better now.
Okay. Well, I think it just must be a signal. Not much I can adjust for that. But Nara is this eternal devotee. He's expansion, but he's a Jiva Tattva. He's a liberated soul, and he's a partial manifestation of the Lord. You see, so together they represent God and his devotee. So one of the it is said that Arjuna is an incarnation of Nara. So when Krishna and Arjuna come together, that's continuing the partnership in Mahabharata as Nara Narayan. There's quite a lot more to say, but I think my signal may not be so good. So
It was perfect,
I'll
Madango
just
Paul
pause
Prabhu.
here
It's
and let
very
everybody
clear.
reflect and ruminate on that.
Thank you for solving that mystery for me, Madango Paul Prabhu. Thank you. Bhima Prabhu, did you unmute yourself briefly? I see everything.
I was
Hare
just
Krishna.
going. I was just going to tell Madan Gopal to go ahead and put the car in reverse and get back to where we can hear him. because it's so much more important that we hear from him than he go to work. That's all.
Yeah. Where are you? Why is your camera off?
I'm in the
You
desert.
taking bubble bath?
Yeah, I'm taking a bubble bath in the desert of New Mexico. I'm out west here in a totally different environment. And it's always good to change one's perspective by changing one's environment. And I suppose, I've never been to India, and I've never really, because I spent my whole life on the road, either as a devotee or as um, a husband or a family man, always traveling. I've always eschewed traveling. But you come to understand that sometimes in order to get a clearer perspective, um, you go to a place where you can leave behind your troubles, so to speak. Hopefully, you won't take it with you. And then in that clear environment that doesn't hit triggers or anything like that, you can open up your mind and your heart. And I guess that's what pilgrimage is all about. You go to, you don't go to see Krishna. You get invited, so to speak, to put yourself in the association of other like-minded. At the beginning of the class, Prabhu said, this gathering, how important it is to gather. And I'm in my sister's home. She let me use her home while I'm out in New Mexico visiting my folks. She has a big cursive sign, and on it just says "gather, gather." And that's like the essence of Sankirtan. And it's so wonderful to have a class like this that where we are actually virtually gathering together. And actually, I almost think that, especially for myself, I find it more intimate than if I were sitting in the temple itself, because we can reflect and also keep ourselves awake by moving about and stuff like that. So I just like to send my appreciation that no matter where you're at or how far you are away from the devotees, you can always gather. And that's the one good thing about this technological age, this age of information, that even that can be dovetailed so beautifully in service, that when you need to hear the truth, you just have to desire it, and then somehow Krishna facilitates it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Very beautifully said. Yeah, there's no, where there is hearing, where there is desire to hear about Krishna, there's no question of separation or loneliness or all that said things.
Can I just add one thing for no particular reason?
Of course, this is the afterglow. This is specifically for that.
I was, since Janmashtami is coming up, I was thinking about this, and now you guys are going to know more about me than you need to know. But many years ago, I was in Montreal, and I had a 5 month, my baby was 5 months old. And I won't say why, but I was thrown into jail because I didn't inhale. I was innocent, but there I was in a jail in Montreal with a 5 month old baby. And what I heard was somebody in a cell next to me chanting Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. And
Really?
yes, Krishna, so you don't, Krishna's grace. I mean, and when I walked into the ashram in India all those years ago, it was Janamastami, and they were having a sapta chanting all night. So I was just thinking about that. How could you be in jail with a baby and somebody's chanting right next door to you? So that's Krishna's grace. I don't know why I felt that I needed to share that, so I don't act all, holy and innocent. I guess I'm not.
Thank you, Nani. That's far out. They put the baby in jail too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And the gods were completely mystified because I wouldn't eat. And then they got really concerned. So they finally let me out. But, the chanting was right there for me.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, you never know. You never know.
We had
How Krishna gonna play out. Yeah, Bhima Prabhu, you have a far out jail story.
oh,
How
I
you
got,
chanted to this guy who was next door. Can you tell it?
yeah,
With all the details.
very quickly, I was thrown. Adi Parush and maybe a couple of other devotees who used to travel. We were in the wrong place at the wrong time. We weren't doing anything criminal. They just didn't like us, and we were just, distributing those who would distribute literature, which was actually never troublesome. But when we traveled around, we would sell things without permits. And so they would you'd spend a weekend in jail, which was not a fun thing. But one time, actually, I'll tell another very quickly. One time we were thrown in this jail cell that held 45 prisoners. This was in Texas, you know, and they didn't even call us Hare Krishnas. You Moonies, And yeah, we were in bunk beds, and they would serve out lunch, but lunch was like a bologna sandwich, right? And the meat was all over the bread, and just junk. And they knew we were vegetarians. Like one of the guards knew who we were, kind of, but in a bad way. And they would only give us meat. And when we asked for extra milk, or when they would take they would take the bologna and roll it up and stick it in the carton of milk, so we didn't eat. It was a Friday. We didn't eat on a Friday, all day Friday. Believe it or not, the Friday was a fast day. So we were very austere as brahmacharis back then, Aniruddha and myself. And so we didn't eat. We were going to come back to the van at, I guess, evening and eat. I can't remember. Maybe it was, it was a fast day. And, but then next thing you know, we found ourselves in this dormitory cell. It was something, because most of them were in there for a damn good reason. And anyways, we couldn't get anything to eat on Friday, so we went all Friday, and then Saturday morning, of course, more meat. They were really going out of their way, the guards, to torture Aniruddha and myself, so we didn't have anything. And then it got to Saturday night, and we went 2 days. We did manage to scrounge up. We did manage to trade our bologna sandwiches for little cartons of milk from other cellmates. Long story, Sunday morning we got up, we were dying. We were young brahmacharis, we were hungry. And Aniruddha said, listen, let's prepare a feast in our minds. Like he was remembering that one Brahmin who was heating milk, right? And in his mind, he couldn't afford to buy milk to offer to Krishna, or rice milk. And so he was heating it up and to make an offering in his mind, like an offering of pure devotion from the heart, even though he didn't have the facility, didn't have the materials, he was too poor. And then, Krishna made it real. So that's what Aniruddha said. Let's just do it. Let's just make a big feast. So we literally sat there on our bunk beds, and we made it so real. I actually burnt the chapatis that were imaginary, because after a time we were doing this, preparing this, and did you stir the rice? Did you put the ginger in there, and did you put the chili in the split pea soup? And we had everything going. And then Aniruddha looked at me after about 20 minutes of thing, goes, did you turn the chapatis? I go, no. And he goes, they're burnt. It was wild, because we didn't have anything. Meanwhile, all the inmates were looking at us like we were freaking crazy. Like, what are these guys doing? Pantomime of cooking. So anyways, we got done this big feast, and we served each other out. And then we imagined that we offered it, did Gayatri. That's back when I wore a Gayatri string. And we did our Gayatri and made an offering. Nothing like jail to settle you into devotional service, into sadhana. Jail is great for sadhana. If you ever find yourself in jail, be thankful. There's nothing else to do except think of Krishna. And anyways, we served and ate, and we ate. And after we got done, we were silent. And Aniruddha turned to me, he goes, dude, he goes, I'm stuffed. And I go, oh, that's really wild, dude. I feel stuffed too. like, we were trying to hand each other imaginary chapatis, and we were like, nah, I've had enough. And we went all Sunday without eating. So it was 3 days without eating. And we went all Sunday, but we were totally satisfied. We didn't want to eat. I remember we let out on Monday when the magistrate finally came and he saw all the cases, threw it out, of course, with us, get out of here, you guys. And we went back to the van, and we didn't just like go jump into the food. We were like, I feel good, you feel good, I feel good. So it is really wild, like in the association of devotees, especially when you have somebody to share a spontaneous realization, that the good Lord is with you. And sometimes he gives you a little something, a little droplet of, hey, I'm for real. I'm for real. And that little, drop on the inside of the honey jar keeps you after that honey for the rest of your life, because you're like, this is real. There's something more. And the association of devotees is great because they'll tell you stories. Adi always says, I pray to Prabhupada for what to speak, because all we have to speak is what Prabhupada said. And that may be true, but Adi is a master storyteller. And my ears perk up when Adi or any Radhanath Maharaj, master storyteller. And Maharaj wouldn't just quote scripture when we were bhaktas, and he would tell us stories of his travels all over the world. And in those travels, we came to understand that Maharaj was, a personality who has experienced things and wonders and travels and travails. And this is what gives us connection to others, when people understand that we've gone through what they've gone through, and this is how we came out of it. It's not always just about spouting philosophy, esoteric philosophy of bygone ages. It's about the here and the now, and the sharing of imaginary prasadam with another devotee, and remembering it 40 years later as one of many little miracles that Krishna allows into your life to remind you that he's always with us, and he's especially with us when we gather, even just with one other in Krishna's service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Yeah, this is Sankirtan movement. We chant together collectively. Man, you had your hand up. What did you want to share your jail story?
Unfortunately, I haven't been to jail as of yet. But I just wanted to share. I was watching, the class, and I saw Adipusha in the background the first time he was observing the paintings in the temple. And I thought, did they switch out the paintings? Are they new paintings? And then I saw him do it again the second time, and he was just really observant. And I've only really seen that like at museums and galleries where people are just really observant. And I thought, oh no, I think those are the same paintings that are there every day when he's there. So I thought it just was really amazing that he was just really observant of them. Almost, it looked like he's never seen them before. And and it just gave me such a feeling of, wow, that's Krishna. That's Radharani. Always new. And devotees who are attuned to that can really see them like again and again and again, and feel like they're just new every day. So it just really touched my heart.
Thank you, man. Adipusha Prabhu, so what did you see?
Well, there's that one picture where Krishna's playing the flute at Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, and Radharani's sitting below, and she has some flowers that she's offering. And his form is a threefold bending form, and it's so beautiful. And he's practically on his toes, just almost floating a little bit off the ground. But the way he's looking at Radharani is the best part of the picture. It's just this gentle, affectionate glance that he's giving her, looking down at her. I mean, every one of those pictures is, I try to not only look at them, but speak to the personalities in the picture in my mind. I have a lot to say about each one. I'm not going to try to extend this conversation too long, but that one particular one, it's just to the left side of the altar, and it's Krishna playing the flute. You just look at those pictures and just drink them in. And the devotees that painted, I know a lot of these painters like Pushkar and Ram Das and Muralidhar, I know these devotees, Vishnu Das, and they evoke the presence of the Lord. It's a very deep meditation. And they're praying for Krishna to empower them, to allow them to help him appear. And Krishna does. He can do it. He's there in those. It's not a painting, it's Krishna. It's a window, Prabhupada said. All glories to Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
What's your favorite painting, Ananda? What's your favorite? What particular painting in the gallery of devotional service always is like everybody? I would think everybody has like a favorite painting. What's yours then?
Mine, it's Krishna the butter thief, where he sits next to a
A
broken
broken pot.
yeah, broken pot,
Unbelievable.
yeah, and looking
That
at you. And now I'm always thinking, Krishna, I always come to you with a problem. Oh, Krishna, help me deal with this. Krishna, help me do. Krishna, if you only get me out of this situation, then I'll surrender 100%. Just Krishna, please, just this one last time, please. And then Krishna looks back at you like, Prabhu, I'm stealing butter. What problem? Difficulty? And I was like, yeah, Krishna, you're right. You're right. It's all uh, sacred BS. Sacred. Yeah, all my problems are BS. That's what that picture does to me every
that's
time I
the
come. Yeah.
that's the painting. That's the painting that I first saw. Maharaj, I said, "Who's this?" And he says, "It's God." And I go, "God's a baby?" And I go, "What's he doing?" He goes, "He just stole butter." And I said, "What's his name?" He goes, "Damodar." He explained very briefly and goes, "He had to be tied up because he's a thief." And I said, "God's a thief?" And he goes, "Yeah, and you better be careful because he's going to steal something from you." Right. And ever since then,
Yeah.
I can't look at that particular painting. He's just staring right out of the painting, right at
Yeah.
you. You know,
Yeah.
Krishna had something to do with that artist when that artist painted that, because I don't know, for myself, when I look at it, I get scared. It's like I've worked so hard for these pots of butter called my material life, and Krishna just waltzes in and he crashes them to the floor and he takes them, and then you end up with nothing. He's like, let me show you what a kinchana is. It's me cracking open this butter and eating everything that you've worked for, and now what do you got? You know?
Yeah, that's Bhima Prabhu's favorite bhav, being tested. Thank you. All right, 8:35. Dear devotees, thank you so much for staying overtime with us. Devaki Priti, please unmute yourself, maybe even turn on your camera if you can, and recite the mantra. This will complete our offering today.
Hi, Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much, everyone. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, take care. Come again tomorrow. Haribol.
Ram,
Yeah. He was here for
Ram,
the jail stories.
Ram, can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah.
Krishna's in your heart. Hare Krishna. Ram, you hear us?
I can't wait to be born into my next life. Hopefully I'll be that cute. Born into a devotee family with a mother that can cook like a connoisseur, and a father who's busily building my inheritance.
Bhima is funny. Yeah. Okay, Hare Krishna. You see that Superman? That's William.